How's it going, guys? This is Tim from Fringe Sport, and today I want to talk you through the Dragonfly, our brand new rack-mounted, plate-loaded lateral raise machine that fits any 3x3 rack with either 5/8 inch or 1-inch holes. And even though it has a pretty simple design, behind its simplicity is some pretty clever engineering. So let's talk about that. So what is the Dragonfly and why did we name it the Dragonfly? Well, in sticking with our animal theme here at Fringe Sport, you can see that the wings right here are very much like the shape of a dragonfly's wings. But why did we even make this product? We wanted to make a rack-mounted lateral raise that is three things: affordable, versatile, and space efficient. Let's cover affordability first. A dedicated selectorized lateral raise machine can run you thousands of dollars. And yes, they are amazing quality, but not everybody has that budget or the space, especially in their home gym. With the Dragonfly, it's coming in at $349 at launch. Now, yes, you could probably find cheaper plate-loaded lateral raise machines on the market, but they're not going to have the same quality or the same versatility as the Dragonfly, which brings me to my next point: how versatile this machine is. As we dive deeper into this video, I'll be going into more detail on certain points of this machine, but to give you a quick overview, 1, you're not restricted to doing just lateral raises with the Dragonfly. 2, you could select certain handle placements and lock them into there depending on what exercise you're performing or what your grip preferences are. And 3, you can also set the starting point for the arms on the Dragonfly using all of these selections up here with the included mag pins. Now, what about space efficiency? Let's just say that your rack is not the permanent home for the Dragonfly and you wanted to remove it to store it somewhere out of the way. As it is, it's a little bit cumbersome. It might get in the way. But if we just remove a couple of these mag pins right here, take one arm of the Dragonfly, just to show you really quickly, move that out of the way, you could see how much less real estate is being taken up, and then you would just use these two mag pins to secure the arm from moving back and forth. Then you can remove it from your rack and put it away for future use. That covers why we made the Dragonfly, but I'm sure a lot of you are here to see all the bells and whistles of the unit. You want to see it in use, so now we can get onto the fun stuff. First, let's go over all the fine details of the Dragonfly and what makes this unit different from others on the market, and then we'll go into actually using the unit. So what makes a Dragonfly different than all other plate-loaded lateral raise machines on the market? Well, for starters, we're including 2 weight horns on each side rather than just your standard one that most, if not all, other lateral raise machines have. The reason we're doing that is because we want you to be able to select the strength curve that you're working with, no matter the exercise that you're performing. And what exactly do I mean by strength curve? It's really just a fancy way of saying the amount of effort that needs to be put in at certain parts of the movement. The issue with having just one weight horn on the outside of a lateral raise machine, as an example, is that it's going to be very difficult at the start of the movement because the weight is further away from the center. If you really think about it, when you're performing dumbbell lateral raises, the weight is centered right in front of you, and even though the strength curve isn't really consistent, you feel a pretty large difference from doing that versus having a weight on an outside weight horn like here. Now, some people prefer that, and they might still want to do it, which is why we are still including it. However, to get a true one-to-one feel on something like a lateral raise, that's why we have this center weight horn right here. Let's go over the difference really quickly. What I've done here is place a 25-pound plate on the outside weight horn on the right side and the inside weight horn on the left side. Now, mind you, I could dumbbell lateral raise 35 pounds pretty comfortably, 40s if I really am pushing it during a workout, but I just want to show you how much of a difference there is in strength curves from both of these placements. So we'll start on the right side really quickly. Again, remember, this is further away from my center, so it should be a little bit more difficult. It's going to be more difficult at the bottom of the movement, and as you get further up, it becomes a little easier. Now, switching over to the left side, because this is closer to my center, this is going to be more of a one-to-one feel versus your dumbbell lateral raise. So what if you didn't want to use the one-to-one? This strength curve is just a little bit too much for you. What do you do in that instance? Well, kind of like I showed you before with storage, These arms not only can move up, but they can move down as well, and you could set it into place. In the back of the Dragonfly arm, there's 2 different slots for 2 different strength curves. So in reality, you have 3 different strength curves that you could work with on just one side of the unit. So if I just move this down a little bit and make sure the holes line up, put that weight pin back through, and I'll just put this here for now. I now have a different strength curve that I can work with. So we've gone over the 4 different weight horns and the 3 different strength curves that you can work with using the Dragonfly. What about the handles right here? If you don't like the handle moving up and down like that when you're performing any exercise, all you would need to do is remove this pop pin and select from any of these holes right here. Just make sure that you line everything up. I'll put it in hole 2 down here for a more neutral handle position. And now the handle is not going to be moving while you're performing any of your exercises. So again, if you prefer locking the handles into place when working out, you have the option to do that with the Dragonfly. You've probably been looking at these 15 holes on the wing, wondering what they do, so let's talk about them. Serve a couple of different functions. One, as I had mentioned toward the beginning of the video, ease of storage. If you wanted to lock the arm into place to make moving the Dragonfly that much easier, then you can do just that. But during exercises, you can use any of these holes to set the arm at certain starting positions. So if you wanted to do partial range of motion and work on the top end of your lateral raise, then you could do just that. All you would need to do is move the arm out of the way. I'll set it on hole 2 as an example. And as you can see, now I'm able to start at a much higher position during my lateral raises rather than starting at the absolute bottom. So you could play around with different starting positions on certain exercises, or you could use that as a way to make storing the Dragonfly a lot easier. When we teased the Dragonfly on Instagram, we received a pretty interesting question regarding this bolt right here. Because of that bolt, does that mean I have to fasten it to my rack, and then whenever I want to take it off my rack, I have to undo that bolt? And the answer is absolutely not. This bolt is actually not fastened to the rack at all. It's actually just fastened to one of these pins right here. I mentioned before that the Dragonfly is compatible with all 3x3 racks with either 5/8 inch or 1 inch holes. Of course, I have it on our Dane 2 right now, so I have a 1 inch pin fastened to the Dragonfly, but of course we are including a 5/8 inch pin that is threaded, and that's where the bolt would go. And I'm sure you could also see the mag pins right here. They're also included with the Dragonfly in a Dragonfly exclusive colorway of black and gold. And of course, we're including 1 inch and 5/8 inch. A couple more housekeeping items, and then I promise we'll actually get to using the unit. This tensioner right here. You could use that to tighten this down and make it as tight as possible on your rack, especially on something like stainless steel tubing, because it doesn't have a coat on it like you would get on our Black Dane 2 as an example that's properly powder coated. It's going to be ever so slightly thinner, so you'll have to use that tensioner to get this as tight as possible to your rack. You really wouldn't have to do that on something like our Black Dane 2 or our Osprey as an example, because they have that layer of powder coat. Additionally, there is an additional UHMW shim in here that is optionally removable, because on American tubing, American uprights, even though it says 3x3, it's ever so slightly thicker than internationally made racks. So that's just some food for thought, and it's included if you need it. And if you're worried about the arm making contact with your rack and damaging your upright, don't worry, because we've included some rubber stoppers right there. So I've given you an overview, I've gone through the details on the unit, now let's get to actually using it. Of course, it's called the Dragonfly Lateral Raise Machine, so the primary exercise you're probably going to be doing on this unit is plate-loaded lateral raises. And of course, you could do these isolaterally or dual. I prefer isolaterally because you have this handle that you could hold on to up here. But of course, I'm not the one making your program. You could choose whatever variation of lateral raises you want to do on this unit. The next one, which I've found to feel pretty nice, is rear delt flies. With rear delt flies, whether you're doing them standing or seated, if you're using dumbbells, and even this goes for lateral raises as well, you tend to use a lot of momentum. You start to cheat the rep a little bit. But depending on how you set up the rear delt flies using the Dragonfly on your rack, it's almost impossible to cheat those reps and will humble you really quickly in the best way possible. Moving back up the rack, we have supinated and pronated front raises. I find that supinated front raises are a very heavily underrated exercise that are great for isolating your upper chest, which is an area that a lot of people, myself included, tend to struggle with. So if you're looking for an isolated upper chest movement, there you go. But you also have pronated front raises that, of course, are going to be very similar to dumbbell front raises that will help you isolate your front delt. So using front raises, you have two options: supinated to isolate your upper chest, or pronated to help isolate your front delt. People have been asking, can you do chest flies using the Dragonfly? And the answer is yes, with an asterisk, because it requires a slightly different setup. If you pay attention to the Dragonfly behind me, you can see it looks a little bit different, not because I rotated the arms or anything, as that would partially damage the unit, but I actually just took the unit and flipped it upside down. Before, I had the mag pin on the bottom, and now I have it on the top just as further proof that this is upside down. But this is required because of the way that the weight horns are situated and how, again, that strength curve is going to affect the movement. So we found that this is the easiest way to do chest flies using the Dragonfly. And you're going to have to play around with the setup. Mine is not going to look the same as yours. I've got pretty long arms for my height. You might have shorter arms for your height. So just find what works for you, as with all other exercises. And then on top of that, we are coming out with screw-in extension handles specifically for the Dragonfly to make chest flies and other exercises that much easier. We have shorter handles as an intended design choice because we wanted to make the unit as compact as possible versus all the other overbuilt ones that are on the market that are just a little bit too big. And believe it or not, you can do single arm plate-loaded rows using the Dragonfly. I know it seems crazy, it seems unorthodox, but we're giving you examples. And of course, if you find any other exercises that you're able to do, be sure to tag us on Instagram and we might even feature you. But we need to remember that the Dragonfly is not really an all-in-one machine. It's meant to serve a few different specific purposes, which is of course what we covered in this video. So the exercises that we covered, just as a recap: lateral raises, front raise variations, chest flies, rear delt flies, and rows. There's the Dragonfly lateral raise by Fringe Sport. We're very proud of this unit. We teased it for a long time, but we had to fine tune a few things because we weren't happy with how it was before. But now we're excited to see it in home gyms across the country. This has been Tim from Fringe Sport talking about the Dragonfly. If you enjoyed this video, or you found it helpful, or even you think it deserves one, please be sure to drop a thumbs up because it helps the channel out a ton more when you think, and it's no cost to you. It's free. If you want to see any more of our content, any other things that are upcoming in 2026, please be sure to click that subscribe button, and hopefully we'll see all you in that next video.